Well, at least you're sure of it for the first 2 weeks in July.
You bought it?
Yes, it was a bargain.
But did you ever see it?
No, but I saw the photograph.
But aren't you, Mr. Adams?
Give my regards to the Duke.
If you love listening to this show, please consider giving a rating and a review on Amazon Alexa or wherever you listen. We want to continue bringing you this amazing content, and part of our ability to do that means that we need a big audience. Now, it may not seem like much, but rating and reviewing the show will help more people find us, just like how you found this show. Simply on any podcast platform, search for a show, scroll down to the bottom, and push 5 stars. It's that easy. Thanks for supporting the show. Today, I'm joined by KR Sanjiv, who is a CTO at Wipro, and his office represents the company's technology think tank that identifies and incubates emerging technologies of the future. Sanjiv, welcome.
Good morning and pleasure speaking to you.
All right. So you've been with Wipro for over 3 decades, and I'm curious to know how the company has evolved from the early days of Wipro Infotech and Wipro Systems in 1995. And in 2000, you guys went public and listed on NYSE. And today, you guys are a $25 billion market cap as of early August 2020.
Sure. So I think it's almost between 35 and 40 years since we started. I think Wipro started as a company that manufactured end-to-end computer systems. And those were the days when India was a closed market. So there was a vacuum left behind when the international companies went out of India. So Wipro came forward and created computers, made computers, the entire hardware, software, operating system, databases, compilers, applications. And we used to sell that in the Indian market. So that's when I joined, late 80s into Wipro. And I used to do field support, for these computer systems then. I think then we migrated, as India opened up, as the economy opened up and, the big companies started coming in back, we migrated, we pivoted. The early 90s was a major, happening year for India as a country, economically and otherwise. And that's the time when we pivoted and said, all the expertise that we have as a company, the R&D, the expertise, etc., why don't we open it as a service to the world, right? As an engineering service, it's an R&D lab on hire instead of, completely dismantling and restarting again. So that's when the 90s, when we did a lot of offshoring work, when we did a lot of technology work for companies abroad in US and other countries. So that continued. I think our journey continued in terms of, it started off in the 90s as an arbitrage, cost arbitrage and talent availability. I think over the years, as the turn of the century, it became more in terms of a reliable software partner who could deliver on time, on quality, on expectation, right, on budget, right? So the quality systems became our prominent USP, right? We could be very trusted with delivery. And I think over the last 7-8 years, it's changed again. It's pivoted again. I think quality and timely delivery is pretty much baseline, table stakes. I think it's in terms of innovation, in terms of consulting, it's in terms of bringing new things. How do we value add to our customers, right? How do we become a partner to them in their digital journeys? I think those have been the transformation, and you would have seen a lot of acquisitions we have made to accelerate on that dimension.
Yeah, that's a really excellent summary of Wipro, and I think if you look at the history even further back into I think the 60s and even beyond that. One thing Wipro has been known for is the ability to evolve and pivot. And to your point, you could really see the kind of gradual evolution as you moved up the value add curve. And now, to your point, really playing an integral part in terms of the digital transformation and the digital journey for many of these large corporate clients that you guys have. Now, specific to coming back to your CTO office, can you talk a little bit about some of the key mandates or priorities that you guys are focused on?
Sure. So from a CTO office perspective, there are 2 primary charter objectives, as I would say. One is to look at all the emerging technologies which are around the corner, around the horizon 2, horizon 3, and by that we mean somewhere around 2 to 3 year kind of time frame, and incubate that within Wipro. When I say incubate, it's basically building skills, building solutions, building partnerships, doing a lot of pilots and POCs with our customers, right? Building the ecosystem. So all those activities, and take the technology or the service offering to a level where it can stand on its own feet from a business perspective, from a P&L perspective. And then we flip it over to the business units to run it, to scale it up subsequently. So this is a cycle that goes on, and this is one of the charters of the CTO office, that incubate, flip over, take a new thing, incubate, flip over. The second big charter is, like I said, how do we bring innovation to our customers, right? What is the art of the possible? Many of our customers, not many, all of the customers, we are fairly strategic in terms of our relationship. So we handle a fair amount of their portfolio. So it is, in fact, some of the systems, in some of the cases, we would know their systems better than they would do, right? So that's the level of strategic engagement. So it is a natural expectation that we bring ideas to the table. We bring the what can be done in their own innovation journey, in their own digitalization journey forward. So how do we bring those innovations? How do we bring those new things, right? Ideation, doing a bit of a prototype and taking it to a client, saying, here's the next best thing you can do around some of the processes that we are involved with. So that's the second charter. I think these are the two big charters of CTO office.
All right, so I want to cover a couple of things related to that. One is the recent news about implementing the Universal Edge Solution Suite that leverages 5G network capabilities. And to your second point is, oftentimes, in some cases, like I said, Wipro may actually know the full stack and the business process, even more intimately than the actual client themselves. How do you guys actually properly store it and frame it in such a way that it is viewed as strategic, and it's something that the vice does in fact convert into pilot and actual implementation?
Sure. Let me ask. So both the questions. So one is in terms of the edge compute you said around 5G. In fact, I would say 5G as a whole topic, edge being one of the pillars of it. So 5G today represents one of our top 3 investments. Historically, if you look at it from a Wipro perspective, we have a usual business which is around providing various IT services to the ISPs, the communication companies, right? And also a large business, engineering business, to the equipment manufacturers, right? The people who make the equipment, the engineering services, and to the silicon vendors who operate in the telecom space. So these are large businesses we have been having for the last 20 years, 20 plus years, right? A big relationship. With 5G, we have done something very different. We believe that the opportunities go beyond scaling these existing relationships to include 5G as a part of their portfolio. 5G brings in a lot of enterprise solutions, a lot of avenues for monetization, which are beyond the core business of each of these sectors, right? So be it how media will use a 5G to generate new revenue streams, and a lot of social the transformations which are today happening, like in the education sector or healthcare sector, they will all leverage a lot of functionality that 5G brings in, very different from, let's say, that migration that happened from 2G to 3G to 4G. It's not just faster network. It has a lot of other features which can be leveraged. So we have created a separate group that focuses on the white spaces and the additional opportunities, be it private network, be it some of the verticalized use cases, or some of the edge compute requirements or opportunities that would come up. And this is a group that will incubate within CTO office these opportunities or these dimensions of 5G. And then, we will expand it over the next 2 years when 5G gets rolled out across the globe. Our objective is to monetize many of these opportunities. Coming to your second part of the question, how do we ensure that we are in sync with what the customer expects? See, we have, if you look at the way we are structured, we have teams which are very account centric. They are joined at the hip with the account. So there are people who spend quite a lot of time with the account. They understand the customer business. They have the relationships with the account teams, various business units within the accounts. And then we have a CTO team and other centers of excellence which are focused on a technology basis. So the basic objective is how do we make, how do we successfully synchronize these two? What is required for the client, which is very well understood by the people who spend their entire week and days and months with the client, right, in their premises and handling their accounts and seeing their pain points and understanding what are their white spaces or gain points. And then we have technology team which knows what is the art of the possible. What can I do? So the ability to, so what we do consciously is to try and have forums where we bring them together so that what needs to be done and what can be done is a fairly good synchronization. So we don't waste too much of effort on doing a pilot or a POC, which works well, but then it doesn't have a business case downstream, right? So a good percentage, one of the measurements which we have is how many of our pilots and POCs that we do for our clients get converted into a production rollout subsequently. That's a demonstration of the customer alignment in terms of initiatives.
All right. So many times when we think about innovation, it also happens in times of scarcity or constraint. And certainly in the context of COVID-19, we've seen both opportunities, but also challenges as well. How has Wipro been helpful and pragmatic in terms of COVID-19 business processes and strategy?
Correct. So I think there are the way we do innovation, or way we believe that we should be doing innovation during this time of the pandemic, right? And even subsequently when it becomes normal or comes back to whatever level of normalcy, we have made some changes to accommodate the nuances. One is we have become much more focused. So you're right. There is it is a resource constrained environment. So instead of looking at too many use cases within a portfolio, we have kind of narrowed down what we believe are much more relevant and much more impactful and much more, required at this point of time. So it's a question of shortening or thinning the canvas and then going a bit deep. That is one part of it. The second part is, I think we have also looked at our approach. How do we build these solutions? How do we build replicability into these solutions? That's another way to address the constraint. I'll give you an example. So if you are looking at, let's say, supply chain, right? Or let's look at blockchain as an example. There are multiple use cases which you can use, which you can deploy blockchain on, supply chain, reverse logistics, invoice reconciliation, track and trace, etc. The idea is we are creating now a common platform, right, that that can be leveraged by multiple units to deploy their use cases instead of building them as silos, right? So it brings in certain efficiency of from a development perspective. And the other thing which we have done is we have also relooked some of our matrices which we use to measure these innovation and success, right? Because we don't want to stick. We had a cycle where we had, we used to make a plan and then you used to meet the milestones and then get the further funding for the further going. They're like a typical VC innovation, this thing, right? We believe we need to pivot much faster. I think things are changing far too quickly in the environment. There's a lot of uncertainties in the environment. And I think we need a better sense and respond kind of model than, a plan and execute kind of model.
So I'm curious, one question that I have for you is in the context of things like robotic process automation and IPAs, where more of the corporate clients are, looking to, minimize core development and be able to use RPAs. How is that either helping or maybe shrinking the business that you used to potentially support?
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, so let me take both the robotics and the RPA. In our terminology, it's two different areas. When I refer to robotics, it's a factory robotics, it's a service robotics, it's actual machines that do work. And RPA is obviously from a software perspective. Yes, when we deploy any kind of automation, be it RPA or we have a platform called Homes, which is an AI platform internally, which we have deployed over 300 customers today. It brings down the effort required in that process, right? By maybe 20%, 30%, depending on the process and depending on the level of automation, RPA plus AI combined. But the fact is, our objective is by doing the first of all, it is something that has to be done. If you don't do it, somebody else will do it. Our objective is that by displaying and demonstrating these efficiencies and creating that savings, right, for our customers, additional work will inflow, right? Additional work will be our market share, our wallet share from the customers will increase because we are demonstrating these kind of constant improvements, right? So additional processes may come, additional applications may come, additional infrastructure may come when we are doing such automations. So very clearly, it is not. If you look at just an engagement, yes, the revenue will decrease, but from an overall portfolio perspective, we expect we expect that in the long run this would be revenue additive.
So we only have 30 seconds left. Can you give us what is the most important message that you want to share from the CTO's office?
I think the most, I think it is, my key message would be innovation. COVID has changed the way we innovate drastically. The opportunities that is creating is very big. It is at national level. Countries and governments are focusing on transforming either their healthcare or education or agriculture, so many initiatives. And technology is the biggest short to medium time enabler. But the opportunities will be available only to people who can accommodate this new DNA, whether it is speed, whether it is ambiguity, whether it is the collaboration that is required, right? Or whether it is the alignment between what is required, the business requirement and the technology fit. So it's a great opportunity in terms of deploying applications, whether it is for the companies or for the government or for society. But then it requires a lot of unlearning and new outlook to be brought in, right, before you can capitalize that. Otherwise, you will be left behind.
All right, so with that, we've been joined by K.R. Sanjiv, who is the CTO at Wipro. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
If you've enjoyed this episode, take a moment to rate our show on any podcast platform that you listen to. Scroll down to the bottom and push 5 stars. It's that easy. And as always, thanks for listening.